Today, I welcome you all to the very much awaited webinar on the procurement topic, that is unlock savings in a monopolistic market, innovative negotiation techniques, which will be led by our expert trainer, Sean Sidney. This webinar will explore the effective strategies to negotiate better in terms and achieve substantial cost savings. This webinar is specially designed and is relevant now as companies are under increasing pressure to optimize their supply chains and improve their bottom lines. Uh, the webinar will also address the unique challenges and opportunities present when negotiating with the monopolistic suppliers. So this is the overview of the webinar that will be covered in the next 20-minute session led by our trainer, Sean Sidney. To give you a brief introduction about our trainer, he is a global procurement and negotiation expert for over 25 years. He has an total experience of 25 years as of now. As a director and consultant at Sean Sidney Management Development, which is his own firm, he has led international procurement teams and has delivered significant savings and driving business value at Compass Group, SC Johnson and DSM. He is now focusing on training and keynote speaking. And Sean has also built a long-term relationship with leading procurement organizations. His programs are very interactive, as some of you must have also attended his past sessions, which he regularly does with Informa. And it is very interactive. He's highly popular amongst his clients and people who attend his trainings. And we have received expert feedback. So after this training, you will also know, and we will let you know about his upcoming trainings with Informa, and you may sign up for that. And so last but not the least, Sean also holds a SIPS Level 6 graduate diploma and has a degree in international business. So I wish you all the best for today's webinar. And I also advise you that if you have any questions regarding the webinar or through the process of the webinar, please put that in the chat and that will be answered at the end of the seminar. Or if Sean likes to pick it up between the seminar, if he thinks it's relevant to the talk going on, he will be answering to your questions. So over to you, Sean, now, and all the best.
Lovely. Thanks, Manali. Welcome, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, or maybe even good evening. Thanks for tuning in for this webinar seminar. It's going to be about 15, 20 minutes. There'll be a chance to interact a little bit during the session, and also there'll be a chance to ask some questions if you want to stay on after. I'll do my very best to answer those. So we're going to start. Obviously, this is about monopolistic markets. Many of you will be in procurement, some not. But for those of us in procurement, we know how difficult some of our supply relationships are due to the fact that we have very little choice. There are lots of different sources of power in negotiation, of course, some quite interesting and cool, but the basic one still comes down to the power of the alternative. If you have an alternative, your negotiations and relationships are fairly easy. If you don't, then it becomes very difficult. Now, just a little word of warning before we start, that there is no magic wand to solving this problem when we're trying to get the best deal from a monopolistic supplier or monopolistic market. There are things we can do, and many of these things you are doing. So we'll highlight and identify things that you are doing. So great, keep doing those. I will also challenge you to think of some new ways, and we'll bring in some of those more innovative or different ideas. So the best way of solving the problem with a monopolistic supply is to first of all look to see where the problem lies, why they're monopolistic. Obviously, that's a lot to do with being driven by the market. And the market, if there's only one supplier on the market, then obviously you're going to find it very difficult. But if we look at that both in terms of the market, and most of us don't work for big enough companies really to change the market, although there are some options there. A lot of the monopolistic position we find, our locked-in position, comes from our own internal history, our own internal position. And we'll also look at how we can try and manage that. So we're going to look at it in two ways, really, seeing how we can change the market, either the market itself, difficult, internally, also difficult, but perhaps obviously more within our control. And secondly, we'll be looking at where we can't change our position in the market or with that supplier as such. We'll look at ways of making the best of a bad job. We'll try and turn it from a real negative, at least make it sort towards the neutral position, because in any part of your job, your role, if you can improve your position from very good to excellent, that's great. If you can also improve it from terrible to bad, that's also good. So we're going to look, and not always thinking we're going to find the perfect solution, but we'll find solutions that will increase your power and give you a better result for yourself and for your organization. Okay, so we're first going to look at a matrix many of you in procurement will be familiar with, so I'll introduce it really very quickly, but we will use it to identify and then move around, and we'll see how this works. So we're going to bring an idea which, again, many of you are very familiar with, Krajic's product portfolio matrix. So the Krajic's matrix, or sometimes called the procurement matrix, as many of you know, this has been around since the late 80s, a very effective way of helping us prioritize. Great, we do a bit of that, of course, focus on where the opportunities and risks lie. But here we're going to look at how we helps us identify and strategize. So we can use this as a base to build our ideas on. So with the matrix has different versions, but the version we're going to use today looks at spend on the axis here and looks at complexity, how difficult your life is. So spend here, obviously we're going to, as a starting point, spend more time on the higher spend items. That's where most of the savings will be, of course, and this is what we're looking at here to release these savings. And the complexity used to be called risk or supply risk, often called complexity now, because it makes us think about how easy our job is. Now, I've trained many sales teams as well, and sales guys, those of you out there who sales, think procurement's an easy job. All we do apparently is line our suppliers up in a row, get out a big stick, and then bash them, and the last one standing is the winner. Now, that's obviously not what we do, literally or otherwise, but this does look at the way that we have power or not. In that situation, we have power. Our life is not complex. We have a number of suppliers. We can change from one to another, standard products. Our internal stakeholders are aligned. Our life is fairly easy. It's not critical to the business. So where we have low complexity here, then our job is very easy. Where we have high, it becomes much more difficult. So we're going to look at both of these. And when we draw a line here, we say, obviously, here we have low, and here we have high complexity. Similar with the spend, we're going to draw a line across here, looking at your responsibility area. Now, if you're a procurement director, you look at your whole team. If you're just managing your own categories, then we look at your categories. Where are most of your spend items? You will find the 80-20 rule applies like it does most places, Pareto. And you'll see that most of your spend is with a few suppliers, a few categories at the top. And we have a large area down here, which sometimes called the tail. We have a large number of categories, smaller categories, with not much spend in them. Okay, so we give these names, as you know. We say leverage, we say strategic, we say routine or non-critical, and we say bottleneck. Now, what we have here is the basis of our strategy forming, and we're going to see in a second, and no surprises, we're going to focus up here. But what we see is that most of the spend is obviously in these two, and this is less. And we have strategies, very simple strategies, which I'll go to a pre-prepared one. Here we go. We have strategies here which really capture the approach that we have in this area. For routine, low spend, low criticality, easy, but we don't really want to spend any time here. It's a small amount of money. It's no real value for the business. So we are going to minimize the work we do here. We're going to delegate, we're going to outsource, we're going to aggregate, try and minimize the work we do here. Bottleneck's the same. However, this is more critical to the business, more challenging, more complex, very much more difficult to change suppliers or find alternative suppliers. So here we're focusing on securing supply. And in leverage, used to be called divide and rule or optimize competition. Here we have, this is where we line those suppliers up in a row. This is where we have the opportunity to get them to compete with each other for our business. And lastly, where we're going to spend the time is in strategic. Strategic, a general approach to strategic is partnership. Longer term, more complex, rather than us fighting each other, we're looking to collaborate perhaps and find opportunities to reduce cost in the supply chain, reduce risk in the supply chain, to increase innovation, customer value, and of course, makes further savings. So here we're going to focus. Now, what we find is this is where our monopolistic suppliers are. Now, whether that's caused by internal or external factors, or often a combination, this is where we're going to find these. Now, studies have shown, and lots of experience myself, and probably you guys as well, has shown that we're looking to save money in here. Now, the question for you guys, I want to ask you to do this in the chat box, but just have a think about it. Where are most of the saving opportunities for you? So you've captured all your categories in here, and lots down here, and lots down here. You capture them on the matrix. Then the question is, if you're looking for cost savings, which I know is only half of what we do, if you're looking for cost savings, where are you likely to find them? Well, you probably worked out the answer already, is not down here, because there's low spend. Okay, doesn't mean you won't save anything from here and here, but it means you're going to work hard, and if you get a 10% saving on a small amount of money, it's not going to make a significant difference to your target. Now, the answer we often get, which has logic to it, is the savings are in leverage, because this is where we get the suppliers to compete. This is where we can push the price down. Now, that is true to the extent that if you come into an immature organization or category, there may be, or something's changed, there may be an opportunity here to get the suppliers competing more effectively with each other. Absolutely. But basically, someone probably before you, or you yourself in previous years, have done a good job here and reduced, let the market do the work and reduce the prices. So basically, probably in leverage, you're already getting fairly good prices. Doesn't mean you don't have to work hard to keep them low, and it doesn't mean there isn't opportunity to lower them further, but that's marginal. So there is saving opportunity here, but that's not where the most is. The most is in strategic, partly because, again, large amount to spend, but also we find here that what happens over time, if a supplier knows that they're locked in, again, whether it's the market or your internal position, if they know you're locked in, then they're going to take advantage of that. That's their job. I mean, you work mostly in procurement teams. Your sales guys are out there, you hope, taking advantage of where they have more power to optimize the pricing to the customer. It's business. But doesn't mean from our side, we can't rule that off or look at that chance and think, okay, what can we do here? So when you look at this, we're going to look at 5 different ways of unlocking our opportunity in this area. We're going to find 5 ways that we can unlock savings in strategic. Now, these 5, they're all separate. There's obviously always going to be an overlap, and they capture the different ways that we can do it. Now, if you would be so kind when we're going through this, think about what you're doing or what you have done or what you particularly could do linked to these ideas. Now, these ideas are brought together from the various experiences and sources. So these are the 5 ways, and every way that you have or could reduce costs will fit into one of these 5 ways. So try and think about your own categories, like what your strategic categories, and try and think about how the opportunity arises. Because if we look at, let's use a permanent pen here, if we look at over time, what we find is, I know we've been in an inflationary market or position the last few years, but generally inflation has been fairly low. Yet every year the supplier comes back with a increase. So over a 5-year period, it goes from, I don't know, goes from 100 maybe to 110, 120. Okay, so that's happening. Obviously with inflation, it goes up higher. That's what we've been accepting from our strategic suppliers. At the same time, what we find is productivity increases. If you think about your own organizations, again, you think about how you've reduced your organization across the whole, all the functions are reducing costs. You're either producing more services or products at a similar cost, or you're producing similar at a lower cost. Productivity across all your functions will be driving that lowering of your costs. Okay, inflation comes in, salary increases, hopefully, come in as well. But these are much smaller than the general productivity gains that you find across your organization. That means that in the same period that a supplier will maybe reduce their costs from 100 down to 95 or 90 or whatever. So what we find, where there was no, there was a profit in there, a profit margin originally in here, but now what we find is that has increased a lot. So over a 5-year period, again, made up figures, but over a 5-year period, we see in a monopolistic market that the prices, the margins for the supplier are increasing, so the profit is increasing. So that's why in strategic, we have this great opportunity, because this is where all the costs, 80 and 90% of the cost saving sit. If you have 3 strategic categories and you work on one of those and you're successful on that, that will probably, very successful on that, that'll probably give you most of your cost saving target for the year, perhaps even exceeding it. So what we're going to do is look at the ways that we can work in strategic to increase our opportunities of cost savings. Now, and all the ones we look at will be hopefully very straightforward and easy to understand, I'm sure, but straightforward, but easy to apply. So again, think about your own categories and think for each of these. Now, the best and the real way of finding this, so we call it number 1, but it doesn't matter what we call it. The first way is by moving from here to here. Simple. Simple to draw, simple to say, a little bit more difficult, a lot more difficult to do. There is a reason that we've stayed in strategic, and that's because it's very hard to move. So how do we move? Again, probably it maybe not be possible in the vast majority of cases, but by moving a little bit, we increase our power position from bad to quite bad. And we're moving a little bit more. Every time we increase our power, then we obviously have more opportunity to get more cost savings. So we're going to look at how we do that. Now, it's very, again, simple to say. We look at the complexity box, complexity axis. Down here, the answers exist. When you're prioritizing, you're categorizing, you're placing each of these into the correlates matrix, what you need to do is say why. Okay. Obviously, if it's low spend, low spend, high spend, high spend. But in terms of the complexity, why is it low or relatively high complexity, challenging? Why is it? So, for example, maybe because there is only one supplier in the market. Okay, if that truly is the case, and then you're going to find it impossible really to do much here, unless you can insource or develop a supplier. But most likely there sometimes is an opportunity to find other suppliers, similar markets who can perhaps be dragged over to offer you the opportunity to supply. So there's some working together there with the external monopolistic position. Not a lot, but first of all, you identify, that's the first question, if you can do that. Second question, also linked to this one, is internally, and most of our challenges are internal. Now, stakeholders, our internal stakeholders for procurement, are the biggest challenge we have, but they're also the biggest opportunity. Our job primarily is to serve our stakeholders. Yes, we get savings targets and other things, but primarily our job is to secure supply, quality, innovation, sustainability, whatever it is that the business requires to be successful. Our job is to acquire that. And if you look at how most organizations work now, 60 or 70% of the revenue that comes in goes out through procurement, because we're buying these services and these products into our organization. I know we transform them internally, but much of the value, much of the risk comes from externally. So we're responsible, obviously, for managing that. So that's our primary objective. So stakeholders we work with, we find it challenging sometimes because their goals sometimes conflict with ours. If we're focusing on cost savings, they're focusing on other things. So we have this challenge. But here we need to work with our stakeholders. We need to work with our stakeholders. And primarily we look selfishly perhaps at cost saving, but we can't sell it that way. To persuade, if we can persuade our stakeholders to explore other suppliers, to go through an approval process with other suppliers, then suddenly our power position has gone all the way over to here. We can do that, again, most times we can't. We can do that by thinking about what our stakeholders want. If they want more quality, if they want more innovation, if they want more sustainability, maybe we can find that from other sources. We will look later how we find it from our own current supplier, but maybe we can find it from the market itself. That's very attractive for some of our stakeholders. Okay, but they're looking to secure supply. That's usually their main objective. Okay, they might not be thinking that, but they just want the product, service in right time, right place, etc. So we can use that to our power as well, because we just simply ask the stakeholder, we only have one supplier. If something goes wrong with this supplier, what happens? Well. The answer is very difficult. They might say, well, you solve it, sure. You solve it, procurement. But this is the power we have. We can say, why don't we find another supplier? But we approve them, and then they can become our backup supplier. By doing that, we're not tricking the stakeholder, but we're aligning to find a way of bringing new suppliers into the fold, into the game. And if we can do that, great. Okay, so if we do that, we will save money. And I hate writing these figures, it seems so big, but there's lots of cases where there's 30 or 40% savings from doing this. But if you look at even at 10 or 20% on one of your biggest categories, that is significant. Now, the reason those savings can be so big is because it's so hard to do. If it was easy, it would be in leverage and it would be done already. So that's the first thing to look at, how we move from strategic to leverage. Okay, the second way is not how we necessarily move, just move, but now it's all linked to the first way. This way we are going to move, but as we will see later, we're either in strategic for good or bad reasons. We're either here for good or bad reasons. Now, the bad reasons are the ones we've been talking about so far, because we're in a monopolistic situation where the supplier, through their own market position or our stakeholder position, has the power. Okay, we can't move, or as you've seen, it's very difficult to move. So we're suffering because of that. So we're there for a bad reason. We're there because we can't move. Okay. We could also be here for good reasons. Now, the word partnership is very important. When we look at our relationships with suppliers, it's not binary, but we could say it's either win-win or win-lose, somewhere in between often, but it could be towards win-win or towards win-lose. Now, if it's win-lose, really we want to be in the leverage quadrant, because we're just going to compete short-term, might change suppliers when somebody else comes along with a better offer. So that's win-lose. We're just going to, one-on-one fight. Doesn't have to be fighting, but we're going to compete with each other for the best price or the key driver. Now, if we're here to treat it for a good reason, that's because partnership is the right approach. This is where we should be partnering with our supplier and our stakeholders long term to, say, drive costs out of the business, out of the supply chain, to find opportunities, manage risk, all these things. That's what we should be doing. So sometimes and often we're in strategic for good reasons, but often we're either here for a bad reason or for both good and bad reasons. Yes, we should be in strategic. However, we haven't chosen this partner. This partner isn't motivated to work with us, to find opportunities, to give us a good price. They're not partnering very well and they're exploiting the power they have. But we're in a category where we should be partnering. So very simple, again, to draw, is we pop into leverage. We can open up markets. Even if we get one more supplier, obviously 2 or 3 more suppliers would be great. We get them to compete, and we do this a lot in RFPs and such, get them to compete for our partnership. So we move here and then we move straight back into strategic, but now it's great because this is the best of both worlds. We've got the right supplier and who's been very competitive, but we've also structured the questions in the RFP, structured the relationship that we have a long-term collaborative partnership. Brilliant. But where the pie is being made bigger, we're getting at least our share, if not the biggest part of the share, because we've got these suppliers competing for our partnership. Good, too. Now life gets a little bit more interesting or tricky. So we look at a third way we do this. And this is basically bluffing or sowing seeds of doubt. What we're saying here is that we actually can't move. We can't move. Very realistic position. We haven't got the resources. There's not enough opportunity within the organization to find a supplier our specifications are too unique, too tied into the current supplier, etc. So we can't move. Okay, not good. We'll look at 4 and 5, what we do in that situation. But first, ask ourselves the question, can we make the supplier think? Because we know this already, perception is more important than reality. So whether or not we actually can move, if we can convince the supplier 5% or 95% or even 100% that we can move, then we have increased power. Because when we're sitting down with the supplier, if they're sitting very comfortably thinking we're here forever, isn't this great, we're going to get nothing from them. However, if we can start thinking, well, so this is where we create doubt. So it's not always easy. This is where we need to work with stakeholders. Now, if we tell a supplier something, yeah, they know we're, even if we're not, they think we're probably bluffing. But if our stakeholders tell them something, then that makes it much more realistic. So rather than the sales guys backdoor selling, using the stakeholder against us, we need to connect with the stakeholder, similar to what we did in the first one we did when we did actually move, and not saying we're actually moving now, but this is where we get the supplier to, the stakeholder to communicate, to give signals to the supplier that we're thinking about moving. Now, the motivation for the stakeholder is very simple there. First of all, saying, if we can do this, we won't have to go through the process of moving. So that's part of it. Also, again, linking to the needs of the stakeholder, understanding what they want. Then, if they want more quality or more innovation or whatever from the current supplier, this is one way of getting it, making the supplier think they're at risk, and they're not sure, they're doubting, think they're at risk, and then they're much more likely to then we'll be able to move them in a position on some of the areas. Could be savings, but often it'd be linked to what the stakeholder wants as well. So the third way is to make them believe, doubt, bluff that we can move. And that's in partnership with our stakeholders. Be completely open what you're doing and the benefits to the stakeholder. Always talk about benefits to the stakeholder. Never talk about cost savings unless that's a benefit to the stakeholder. You'll still get cost savings, but you can also deliver value for your stakeholder. Good. That's the third way. Now, so what we're saying here is we're stuck in here now. We're not going to try and move across. We're stuck. So we have to make the best of a bad job. We're with a supplier, nothing we can do internally, nothing, no opportunities externally to move. So we're stuck with the supplier. Okay. So now we have 2 options left. Okay. And again, you're probably using many of these, but again, just challenge to think how we do it. And we're going to call this one carrot. Carrot and stick. Next one, by the way. English expression you probably know it anyway, but carrots is like a donkey or a mule or a horse. You hold the carrot in front and they walk faster. You use a stick to hit them and they walk faster. So the carrot is things that will be interesting and beneficial to them to help them achieve their objectives. Now, we can also call this collaborate. We're going to find ways of helping our supplier. And we do that in various ways. We're going to look at an example in a minute, generic example. But here, and without going into the examples, what we're doing is finding out what the supplier wants. Now, it's really, really important, not always easy, but really important when you're negotiating, whoever is with, to understand the needs of that person. So we've mentioned a few times already, when you were working with stakeholders, it is a negotiation, collaborative negotiation. But when we're working with stakeholders, understanding their needs, understanding what they're measured on is really important. So we can rather be a hindrance to them, rather than make life harder for them. Procurement comes along and they think, oh no, procurement, they're going to make our life more difficult, going to slow things down, they're going to demand work for us, put our key supplier relationships at risk, which are really working well. So that's because they think we're going to come along and ask for savings, which will have a negative effect on the other services that supplier will change supplier. So this is what stakeholders think. So what we need with stakeholders is to understand their needs. We come along, we speak their language, their needs. We can help you with innovation. We can help you with lead times. We can help you whatever it is they need to be more successful in their own goals. We can help them. And that's a really key message. So that's for the stakeholder. Similarly, in our negotiations with suppliers, okay, we want to use power, different sources of power, but one of the sources of power is knowledge and knowing what the supplier's goals are, what their needs are, is really important for us. Now, thinking about when we're dealing with suppliers, again, we use an example in a moment for all the whole 5 steps. But when we look at our how we collaborate, finding things that we can work on together. Now, maybe if we reduce costs from the supply chain, yeah, that can be a joint project. If we help them improve quality, if we work together to reduce lead times, if we manage to reduce inventory, if we manage to do all sorts of things, manage to find innovation or help us bring value to our customers, all those things we can do to collaborate. Now, those things will be attractive to a supplier who has a goal. Now, what the goals are, we don't know at this stage. Maybe you do for yours, but that's what we've got to find out. We've got to start building trust, start building an open relationship. Why should they tell us their goals? Because we can tell them ours, we can tell our organization's goals, and we can say, how can we work together to help you, supplier, better achieve your objectives? Because although they have lots of power to squeeze us, they haven't necessarily got the power or the thought to collaborate with us. So this is what we need to do to motivate them to collaborate. So we'll look at that in a moment with some examples. And then lastly, appropriately in red, let's look at the stick. Now here is going to be more where we're fighting with the supplier. And here we're going to think how we can hurt them, sounds wrong, but how we can, basically, if we're changing suppliers and we're threatening them with changing suppliers, that is threatening to hurt them. So how we can make their objectives harder to achieve, okay? We feel weak, and we look at this again in the example in a second. We feel weak because we can't move, they have all the power, they do whatever they want, and they're unresponsive to our needs. Their price is very high, we think. So what can we do? Here, we can find their weaknesses. Again, understanding what their objectives are, again, maybe for a different reason now, not to collaborate, but to use that to find out how we can hurt them. And we'll use this in the example coming up now. Actually, let's straight get to this example. Now, if we're looking at a scenario, and this is just a generic scenario, and it's none of you probably in this situation, but who knows? This is a scenario. Now, I'll explain it, and then I'll ask you guys in the chat box to put in some ideas on how we can optimize or reduce the bad position that we're in. Okay, so imagine there is a #1 cola brand in the world. Okay, imagine that you are the procurement team or the procurement category manager for soft drinks or whatever it is in a big supermarket. Along comes me. I'll be the account manager for the cola brand A. I come along and say, we're putting a 12% increase in prices for 2025. We have a discussion. Basically, I'm saying, sorry, but take it or leave it, because this is a global directive and we have to do it. So you're in a very difficult position. You have the #1 cola brand who are going to put your prices up, their prices to you at 12%, and you don't seem to have any power to resist that. Or do you? So if we can use the chat box, I'll open mine here. There's a message in there. It's in there already. And if you have any questions, again, after the session finishes in 5 minutes, I'll be on board to answer any of those questions. But anybody got any ideas on how you, as a category manager for soft drinks for a supermarket, would react to this scenario?
If anyone has got any questions, please can you type in the chat box?
Good. Here we go. Good. So whilst we may not be getting interactive on the chat, so I'll perhaps give you a few ideas. One is using the stick, how we can fight these guys. We can use that. We can think about the power we have. We can't kick them out. We can't kick them out because if you imagine we kick brand A out, brand A is gone. Our customers come in, won't buy brand A anymore. They instead go to another supermarket and buy the brand A from there. Look around the supermarket and go, oh, this is quite nice here. And you may lose customer. Or some will say, I'll buy it next week, and then go and not buy cola from you anymore. So, and thank you very much, Ala. Reduce our demand, yes. So we got some options here. One is that we can effectively reduce demand, very good. We can reduce demand by reducing shelf space. Now we have a whole aisle full of this brand A product. We can then bring it down to a very small area. Our customers who really want Cola A can still get it, but they think, where is it? Here it is. We keep refilling. So that takes a lot of demand. So we could hurt brand A by doing that. We could also hurt brand A by having a joint promotion with brand B, buy two for one, or some other promotion. So we can tell brand A we're going to do this. We can also fight again by putting a price increase through to our customers, maybe higher. So we can do different things to hurt demand, hurt brand A. We could also realize, and this is where a lot of power comes, brand A have their 2 or 3 main products, but they're always trying to sell other brands which are not the high brand, whether it's water, whether it's some other soft drinks. We're always trying to postpone payments until, we could postpone payments, but likely they'll just say, well, we'll take the product off your shelves until you pay us. They're pretty tough, these guys. But what we can do is, they're trying to sell the goals of many of brand A's salespeople will be to get other products on the shelf. Every year they'll have a new product or a new version or a product, and their weakness is there as well. So they're trying to get those on. So you can just say to brand A, okay, we're going to reduce your shelf space. We're going to do a promotion with brand B, and we're going to take away all your peripheral, your less powerful products. So we have the power to fight. And again, what you need to do here, if you're so kind, is think about your own situation when you are dealing with these monopolistic situations. How can you possibly hurt them a little bit? Okay, that's the nasty side. Okay, the good side, how can we collaborate? And then that's obviously about having promotional collaborations and other things. You say, well, if you can reduce your price, we can do this. And a great question to ask is, what can you do for us if we accept your price increase? If we have to accept it, what else can you do for us? And so we generate ideas from ourselves, how we can work together better, and we also generate ideas from them. I realize I'm way over time, so hopefully most of you have managed to stay with us here. So we go through the 5 very quickly. 1 is we move across. 2 is we move across and move back. 3 is we bluff, moving across. And then 4 and 5 are carrot and stick. So these are the ways that you will have been working. These are the only ways you can work, but realize if you can't do these, try and do a little bit of this, gives you a bit of strength. But in the end, find ways of hurting them or collaborating with them in the relationship, and then that's the way to get the value. Thank you, guys. Overran, sorry. I'm still here for some questions if you want to discuss any of your own categories. But for those who have stayed and those who are shooting off now, thanks very much for your engagement. I'll hand over to Manali now, who will say a final goodbye, but I'll still be online afterwards if you need to ask me some questions. So thanks very much.
Sean, I think we have got one question. Would you like to take that?
Yep, of course. Is it in the chat box? Yep.
Yeah, it's in the chat box from Omer. What if the supplier has good quality and we have half the price from another supplier? Is it good to ask for more discount?
Very good question. And yes, thank you very much, Omer. It is good to ask for a discount, of course, but we're going to ask with some power. We're going to give ourselves some power. Now, the supplier has good quality, and they know that your organization needs that quality. So what you need to do is work with your stakeholder to give them, the supplier, the feeling that quality is now less important for you. A typical question sales guys ask us is, how's business? And a typical answer we give is good. Thank you very much. Now, perhaps we shouldn't be saying good. Perhaps you were saying, yeah, we're under a lot of price pressure in the markets and everything else, which often is true anyway. So what we have to convince the supplier on is that quality is no longer everything. They will know that quality is still perhaps the priority, but where it was quality and price, so they can get away with charging what they like because they know that we won't go somewhere else because price is not the business priority. We have to lower this and increase this. we're under price pressure, we have to cut whatever, but we need to make the supplier think. And the only way we're going to do that really is by using our stakeholders. So you have stakeholders who are demanding the quality, work with them, tell them that we're not going to change supplier, we're not going to get a reduction in quality. However, if we can convince that supplier or make them doubt that quality is less important and the price difference is now too high to suffer anymore, and we're going to consider or go through a program of seeing if we can go to another supplier, and they will say, yeah, but the quality is much lower. I say, well, no, actually, we've done some testing or we've looked at it, the quality is okay, but the price difference is so significant and we need to reduce costs in the organization that is the preferred path for us. Again, you're bluffing, but that's the way to do it. So hopefully that's a quick answer. Omer, any more questions? Can quality be secondary? Same question, be secondary when negotiating the cost of supply services. Yes, it can. Genuinely, it can be second. But I think I'm reading into this that it's not second because your organization wants the quality. But there's always a trade-off. And you've got to make the supplier doubt that you're willing to pay anything for that. And that requires your stakeholder. Sell to your stakeholder, get them on board, sow some seeds of doubt into the mind of the supplier, and then they'll be doubting whether quality is the number one clear priority anymore. And that gives you power to not change, but puts power in their head that you might change. And you're using the power of the alternative without having to go through all the work of changing suppliers. Good.
I
So,
think that's all now.
Great. One more question. Yeah, how much we need to be transparent when dealing with supplier or the customer? One quick thing on this, because I know we're finishing. Transparency is information. There's two types of information. Information you want to share, information you don't want to share. The more collaborative relationship you are, the more information you share, the more competitive win-lose relationship, the less you share. But think about what you want to share, which will make you stronger, and think about what you want to hide to keep you strong. And then there's the middle ground where you think, well, if I share, it will make me weaker, but that means I can get some collaborative opportunities. That's when you say, if it's win-win, probably share. If it's win-lose, don't share. Good. Great. So thank you all very much. Manali will just say goodbye, but thank you very much for attending the webinar, and hope to see some of you in the future.
Thank you very much, Sean, for taking this webinar. And I would like to thank all our attendees who took out time to attend this webinar. I'm sure they have taken knowledge from this. And in line with the same, I would like to invite you all for Sean Sidney's our upcoming courses, training courses that we have. I'll be sending around his courses, and it will be great to gain more knowledge by signing up for these courses. So we'll be sending you the details of those courses. Thank you again. Thank you again for sending this. Manali, can we get the recorded version? Yes, sure. We will send you the link of this. So thank you so much. See you again and have a nice evening. Thank you, Sean. Take care.
Thank you, guys. Cheers. Bye-bye.
What if you and your team can be even more? Even more informed, competitive, accomplished, even more successful, with programs designed to inspire and empower everyone to become even more. Introducing Informa Connect Academy. With hundreds of global, digital, and in-person training courses led by world-renowned industry experts, reimagining learning experiences for even more unlocked potential. Informa Connect Academy, available at informaconnect.com/academy.